Well, new year, new legislative session. As lawmakers return here to Albany, we hear from Assembly members on which issues are at the top of their agenda as they get back to work. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Empire State Weekly. I'm Ryan Peterson here in Albany. Those lawmakers are returning here to the capital city for the official start of that legislative session. Some of the issues already at the top of mind for our lawmakers: rising prices and public safety. Bail reform was a major topic during the gubernatorial race last fall and throughout last year's session. Republicans pushing to repeal the controversial policy, which eliminates cash bail for more criminals, saying it contributes to a rise in crime. Democrats, on the other hand, say tackling crime should be less focused on punishment and more on other societal factors like mental health. And we're pleased to be joined now by Assemblyman Chris Tague, representing the Assembly District 102. Assemblyman, thanks so much for joining us. Nice to see you.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
So we're heading into this new legislative session now. What is top of mind for you as we get started on a new year?
I think there's three top issues, three legislative issues that I think our conference is going to push. And number one is to reduce the cost of living. We're in hard economic times, highest inflation in over 40 years. Secondly, we need to make New York safe again. And we need to get rid of this terrible bail reform. We need to do something about it right away. And lastly, we need to root out corruption. And that's something that has been an ongoing issue even long before I was in the Assembly. So I think those are the three top issues that our conference is going to be pushing when we start up here next week.
And I know you were upset recently. You sent out a press release when they called that special session to come back in regards to that pay raise.
Yeah, to me, it was a waste of time and taxpayer money. We have been having issues, inflationary issues. We were going into the fall and winter months where people have to start worrying about paying for home heating fuel oil. And we're going to Albany to give a $32,000 a year raise to lawmakers when our constituents are struggling to be able to put gas in their cars, fuel oil, pay their taxes, put food on the table. And that's what we go to Albany for. It's just there's no common sense in the majorities in either houses. And apparently the governor doesn't have enough power to rein in her own, her own members of her own party.
You know, last month I had a chance to talk with Senate Minority Leader Rob Ortt, and it was right after the scoping statement came out from the Climate Action Committee. And we were talking about some of the items in there. You're a former dairy farmer. You represent a big agricultural region there in the Schoharie Valley. What are your thoughts on some of the items that are listed in there that Senator Ortt felt were really going to be hard for our farmers here in New York State to follow through with?
Absolutely. Well, I was opposed to the initiative, and not because I don't think it's a good thing. I think we should all be doing our part to better the environment. The problem is the timing and how they're laying it out. You can't just expect people to turn a switch on or off tomorrow. The costs are just going to be unbelievable for our dairy farmers, and having to switch over to different types of energy so quickly and not knowing whether it's going to work or not is a detriment to their business.
And not only that, but as you mentioned, the cost involved and how it would all be paid for.
Yeah, and I mean, right now, go to any family in the state of New York and tell them, you know what, in 2 weeks, you got to switch everything over to electric. No more propane, no more wood stove, no more fuel oil. Everything's going to electric, and you got to do it in 2 weeks. Now, I know that's not the case. It isn't 2 weeks, but it's really not giving people enough time to research or look at other avenues of energy in that short period of time. And, my district's very rural. I represent 7 counties, or all or parts of 7 counties. There are still a lot of people in my district that heat with wood, and they have for generations, and that's what they do. And now we're telling them that no, you got a certain amount of time and everybody's going to switch over electric. And here's the other thing, Ryan. What good is it when the neighboring states around you aren't doing it? What do you think, that emissions don't travel from one state to the other? I don't get it. I think there's a better way of doing this. Like I said, everybody is for improving the environment.
Sure.
It's how we do it. And to mandate that people make these changes, number one, when they can't afford it, and number two, when they don't understand it, is just ridiculous. But this is what they continue to do in Albany in the majority.
Real quick before I let you go, that gas tax sales holiday, is that something that needs to come back?
Yes, absolutely. Until we get gas back down to the prices of 2 years ago, I'm all for it. That was another thing that we pushed that we should have been talking about in special session, was extending it. They didn't want to talk about it. Listen, the only thing they wanted to talk about was a pay raise. That was it. Nothing else. And it's really a shame, and it's really disingenuous to the taxpayers of the state of New York.
Assemblyman Chris Tague, as always, we thank you for your time, Chris. Nice to see you.
You too, Ryan. I appreciate it.
All right, and we are joined now by Assemblywoman Patricia Fahey, who represents District 109. Assemblywoman, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So we're off and running in a new legislative session here. What is top of mind for you and the Democratic majority this year?
Oh, well, the budget always dominates our first few months, but tops for me will continue to be really what have been 3 to 4 issues that have consistently been big ones for me. And that is, well, lately it's inflation and making sure that we remain focused on family and the consumers who are struggling right now. But that will include housing issues, as well as some education affordability, as well as for me, climate change, making sure that our transportation systems remain affordable while transitioning to cleaner energies, and then public safety, which we know is very much continues to be on the public's mind. So we've got a busy agenda ahead of us this year.
And that public safety component you share with your Republican counterparts. So hopefully that's something you can all at least agree on there.
I think everyone should be concerned about public safety, and I think sometimes those issues get misrepresented, but there's always more we can do to tighten up. We've heard of some egregious stories with domestic violence. We know we have some youth and gun issues, and as you know, I have, long before I came to the New York Assembly, I have a 30-year track record on gun safety, and there's always areas to tighten up. So I see a few areas there that we can make headway on, because we've got to make sure the public feels safe.
Last month, a special session was called before the official legislative session began, and that was a matter of a pay raise for state legislators. And a lot of people were questioning the timing of that, given the inflation everybody else is dealing with around the state. Do you think that was the appropriate time to put that forward and to pass it now?
Well, as I've said publicly a couple of times on this, I certainly didn't seek that pay raise. I struggled right until the morning of whether to support that pay raise. And yes, the timing is always difficult, but it's tied to the Constitution. It has to be done in a previous session. Otherwise, you can't revisit it for another 2 years. But I still think right before the holidays, it looked like we were giving ourselves one heck of a gift when others are struggling. So I understand it's tied to 4 years ago, the actions that were taken by the Legislative Pay Commission, and it still is only the second pay raise in 23 years, I think. But in the end, I did, as much as I didn't seek it, and I certainly didn't run for it. I knew what the pay was when I ran. I ended up in the end supporting it, because I recognize that we have had an unhealthy turnover, especially among New York City and the New York City area members, because the New York City Council still pays significantly more, has a bigger staff budget, has a bigger grant budget, and more. So we've got to stop this unhealthy turnover. I'm now considered a senior member, and I've only been here 10 years.
Talk to me about this right to repair bill that you championed that recently just passed, and what it means for the everyday person out there that may be looking to save some money in repairing their personal electronics. How does this work?
Thank you for what has really become one of my top bills. It was a bill in the works for 10 years. I've only had it for the last 2 years, but Assemblyman, now Congressman Joe Morelli, had the bill here in the Assembly, now has it in Congress. What this does is it gives the right to repair to the individual. I'm on my fourth cracked screen on my iPhone, and it's almost $100 every time I go to get it repaired.
Sure.
250 if I had a newer phone. I have an i8. Um, but if we had independent repairers, for those of us who are old enough to remember the TV repairers on our corner
Right.
storefronts, we need more independent repairers. We need more competition in this, and we need more variety. If we truly own our phones, our laptops, our desktops, we would have more alternatives, and we've seen more gaming in electronics where it becomes almost impossible to repair them, and you're actually it's recommended that you just buy a new one. So we see so many young people who are constantly under a new $1,000 contract every 2 years instead of repairing. And by the way, in addition to being so consumer friendly and small business friendly, we're hoping to see a huge growth in small businesses. This is a terrific one for the environment, because it's expected to keep hundreds of thousands of pounds of e-waste out of our landfills, and that was the fastest growing contributor to our landfills around the country. So thank you. I'm over the moon on this bill. We had difficult negotiations. I'm not going to kid anybody. You may see me doing a few more bills along that, because we had to make some tough trade-offs to get that over the finish line. But that happened, as you know, just before New Year's.
That's
so
right.
It was my holiday, my holiday gift.
Just before I let you go, that gas tax holiday for the state of New York, does that need to come back? Will it be renewed?
We've got to revisit it and look at it. The price, when we first adopted that, the price of gas was about $5 a gallon. It is now about $3.50. Of course, that always varies with where you live, and it's coming down a little bit more. I want to make sure that we're looking at utilities, because that's still where we're seeing a huge growth. On utilities, as well as some housing affordability, as well as the earned income tax credit. I've had the bill there for 2 years. It rewards work. It's one of the most evidence-based programs, successful anti-poverty programs we've had. So there's a few things I want to look at, and just came from an event on car shares. So there's a few things, but we've got to put that back on the table. Even if the price of gas is not as stratospheric as it was a year ago.
Assemblywoman Patricia Fahey from Assembly District 109. As always, we thank you for your time. Nice to see you. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thanks for the interest. Happy New Year.
The recreational marijuana industry is underway here in New York State, but the first legal sales are highlighting the next steps the industry needs to take. We'll speak with a representative from the Office of Cannabis Management on their plans for the year. Welcome back to Empire State Weekly. I'm Ryan Peterson here in Albany. Legal recreational marijuana sales are underway at a single dispensary down in New York City. The state's first dispensary opening at the end of last month, narrowly making the self-imposed deadline of having legal sales before the end of the year. Sales are restricted, of course, to those 21 and older. The dispensary can only take cash or a debit card because of marijuana's continued status as a Schedule I substance at the federal level. There is no official word yet when future recreational dispensaries, however, will open throughout the state. All right, as legal adult use recreational marijuana sales are now underway in New York, we're joined by Axel Burnaby. He's the Chief of Staff, Senior Policy Director at the Office of Cannabis Management. Give us a better understanding of what is next here. Axel, thanks so much for giving us your time.
Pleasure to be here with you.
So December 29th, we kicked off down in New York City with Housing Works Cannabis Shop. How have things been going as far as OCM is concerned? Do you like what you're seeing?
Yes, we're very happy with the results. I mean, we weren't entirely sure what to expect on launch. This is the culmination of a year's worth of effort in licensing farmers, small upstate farmers, and then small processors in New York, and finally, our retail dispensaries. And it was a year of packaging and labeling and testing all the products, and finally the launch. It turned out to be a phenomenal event, and having Housing Works, being the cornerstone of it with such a great reputable non-for-profit servicing underserved New Yorkers, we were just the lines around the block. There were thousands of people lining up. So I think it really kick-started an energy around opening these dispensaries, and we're hopeful that the other dispensary license owners that we gave a license to are really going to start rolling out new stores in the new year. So we were really overwhelmed by how positive the event was.
I suppose it's a little too early to have any sales figures yet out of the launch, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, exact sales figures, yes, but they were serving, hundreds of customers
Sure.
a day, and folks were, in there buying commemorative early kind of cannabis products. I think the average ticket price was around $100. So good sale volume and good sales price for the ticket. The products were priced at a really good price point so that they could be competitive with the illicit market. So all these are little things we track. We have a really good data analytics group that looks at this stuff. So everything's firing on all cylinders. Now we just need to, keep rolling out these stores.
Right. You mentioned the illicit market there, and I know that's been an issue down in the city. There has been some enforcement. Can we expect more of that as these rollouts continue?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're turbocharging that. I mean, we gave everybody ample warning and notice over the last year, telling them that they're jeopardizing their ability to get a new license, telling them they're violating the law, they're trying to jump the gun on placing themselves, ahead of the line on other licensees, and that wasn't going to work. And then late last year, or the fourth quarter, we started really cracking down. We've seized millions of dollars worth of products. We're going in. We have the NYPD, we have the sheriff's office, and other local enforcement partners, and we're really going to step up that effort, especially now that we have legal dispensaries where folks can go get legal, tested, sort of safe product. That's a game changer for us. So you can expect a whole lot more enforcement as we kick off the new year.
And as far as the timeline goes for these additional shops to get up and running, I know the governor had promised upwards of 20 to be open by the new year. Can we expect to see those actual storefronts, or how is that delivery model working out so far? And have there been any deliveries yet?
There have not yet been any deliveries. Maybe we'll have another event when that happens, the first person that gets delivered to. But recall, we licensed 36 applicants on November 21st. So it's just a question of them starting to roll out. We have some that have given us dispensary locations for delivery. So they're going through the community approval process as well. We have a couple of other leases that we've received of folks that are moving. We know for a fact we'll get a couple more that in the month of January. So I think they just keep rolling out. It depends on community involvement and community feedback process, but we know a lot of them are eager to go and are really starting to operationalize this. So we're very excited about new ones coming online.
And of course, those equity operators are getting the priority here for those initial rollouts. And Housing Works is a wonderful organization from what I've read about them and their work with AIDS and HIV community. That's got to feel pretty good for you guys as well.
That was really the icing on the cake here. It was we really did start with equity. We wanted to make it slightly different than other states. As we were the 15th, we were lucky to be able to learn from those pioneer states. But we did decide to front load with folks that had been justice involved, folks that came from communities that have been disproportionately impacted. And we think we were really successful. We turned that around extraordinarily quickly as well, the whole application and scoring process. And then we threw in some non-for-profit. So we have the Housing Works, the Doe Fund, Urban League. We have just some really reputable non-for-profits that'll be selling. And it's not even the tax dollars that get reinvested. This is actually the money itself goes to those non-for-profit ends. And I don't think anybody in the world's done that yet. So yeah, we're pretty proud of that.
So I'm talking to you from the Capitol here in Albany. What can you say for folks here in the Capital region that are antsy for the shops to open up our way?
I could say we have a lease, that's been signed. We have someone identified as a winner that's going to get matched with that lease. And so now it's literally the build out. I think, it's DASNY, which is our sister agency, that's sort of operationalizing the build out. So, but I think that might be the next destination after the city, could be the Capital region.
All right, good to hear. Axel Burnaby, Chief of Staff, Senior Policy Director for the Office of Cannabis Management. We appreciate the time. Nice talking with you.
It was a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much.
All right, a controversial nomination leads to pushback over the state's top judge. Why those from the governor's own party are calling for her to withdraw her nomination. All right, welcome back to Empire State Weekly here in Albany. I'm Ryan Peterson. Pushback continues over Governor Hochul's nomination for Chief Judge to the state's Court of Appeals, Hector LaSalle. members of the governor's own party calling on her to withdraw his nomination due to LaSalle's conservative views on some decisions he's made. Several Democratic lawmakers say they will not vote to confirm his nomination. If Hochul does not remove the nomination for LaSalle, the issue will go to the Senate Judiciary Committee for a hearing. All right, stick around. We'll be back with a look at the week ahead in just a moment. Finally, here on Empire State Weekly, Governor Kathy Hochul is set to give New York's State of the State address next week. That address comes after the governor became the first woman elected to that office. Next week, we'll bring you the latest from the State of the State and hear from the executive director of the School Boards Association to get reaction on the governor's plans for education here in the Empire State. From all of us here on Empire State Weekly, I'm Ryan Peterson in Albany. We'll see you back here next week. Don't forget, you can watch us all over the state. Here's a full schedule of Empire State Weekly on 10 television stations across New York.